The C101 Aviojet is the jet I did not know I needed or wanted. And thanks to Mobius, out of all the modules he could have gifted me,
just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this.
he gifted me this one.
And totally redeem yourself!
And it is awesome. I remember looking at this jet on the DCS website. It had one engine, no afterburner. It was a 2-seat trainer. And then looking at the diagram provided by Contact Light at DCS Dogfighters, I looked at that maximum sustained turn at only 10 degrees and thought,
I'd buy that for $1.
But man, did my opinion change. As soon as I spawned into the cockpit, I knew this thing was special. The gauges are glorious, and that's the first thing I noticed. The first time you spawn into a new module, you kind of look around, try to get your bearings on where everything is, try to get a feel for the layout, how the joystick's set up, the throttle. And as I look around this cockpit, the thing that really jumped out at me was just how convenient and thoughtfully placed everything is. It's like the engineers had the pilot in mind and they built the aircraft around his convenience. I guess my expectations were kind of low when I first saw this. It kind of reminded me of like a kid ride that pretends to be an airplane, but as soon as you look around the cockpit, it feels like you're in a fighter. And speaking of looking around, the visibility out of the cockpit is on par, or if not better, than the F5. And that's pretty amazing considering this is a 2-seater and both the pilot and the co-pilot, or I guess the instructor, have awesome visibility. It's got a great bubble canopy, but even the canopy bow is pushed so far forward that it never really gets in the way. And look how convenient that mirror is tucked away to the side. It allows me to check my 6 at a glance, but it doesn't obscure my vision out the front.
Nice.
The seat does have some thickness to it, and there's a canopy bow in the back. If anything, it kind of helps me as a reference point, but they don't hurt my vision. And when I first heard this sound, I was like, oh boy, here we go again with a G limiter. But then T-Rock corrected me and said, no, that's not a G limiter, that's a stall warning, a shaker. I thought he told me it shakes the rudder pedals, but then I also saw a video where it shakes the joystick, so either way, it's some kind of stall warning. We have to talk about that engine noise. It sounds like an electric car, maybe a hairdryer, an electric razor, but from the cockpit it's super quiet and you don't really hear anything, as my buddy just hits a tree. So this was actually my very first time dogfighting in this aircraft, and I definitely felt the lack of afterburner, as did my friend that just hit a tree. We're going to be dogfighting with the dual M3 half-inch machine guns. There's also an option for a single 30mm cannon. We normally fly in a clean configuration just to get the maximum performance out of our jets, but this server does have the C101 carrying 2 9M sidewinders, and it has pylons, so we're going to dump the sidewinders at the start of the fight just to make it a little bit more clean and better performing. And actually, this thing can carry a huge variety of weapons. I think that developers have done a really good job of making this a complete module. So if you buy this module, you'll get both the EB and the CC models. And from the DCS website, it says the EB model is the primary jet trainer and aerobatic display aircraft of the Spanish Air Force, while the CC model, with its 7 hardpoints and upgraded engine, is a versatile light aircraft and has seen combat with the Honduras Air Force. It's also in service with the Jordanian and Chilean Air Forces. The guns do sound very awesome. It does take a little bit of setup when you first spawn in. There's probably more covers and switches than most aircraft. There's 2 covers on your joystick alone that reveals the trigger and weapons release, which fires the missiles. And then there's a cover that reveals air to air or air to ground. You also have to turn on the HUD. But once you have everything set, the gunplay is a joy, and the simplicity of this aircraft is part of the charm. And this really is a fun fighter if you can find a friend that's willing to get it, because you're not going to beat another fighter that's got an afterburner. But the thing that makes it so great is that you really have to focus on your BFM, your basic fighter maneuvers, and not rely on your thrust to weight and your afterburner. So with these jets especially, the rate is almost non-existent. So I treated this thing like a warbird. I found flying level I could get a little bit over 300. The speed indicator is in knots. If I went into a dive, I could get maybe up to 400, but I would try to get as fast as I could and then use the vertical, try to maintain my energy, do a high yo-yo, and then come down on the player like a boom and zoom. And if the other player tried to stay low, stay in the rate, or then try to get slow and try to force overshoots and constant reverses, they would soon find that I would be on their 6 really fast. Now, Freediver and I, this was our first time with the module, but T-Rock already had the jet. And it got to a point where I was on their 6 so fast that T-Rock started accusing me of cheating.
That guy is f***ing cheating! He's cheating!
Now, I thought it was my superior tactics But then Freediver looked into the fuel situation and soon discovered that my side had less fuel. And that also just goes to show you how important it is to have balanced fuel for both players. We also discovered that this thing can eat a lot of bullets. So I wanted you to hear the sound of those Sidewinders launching, because I think the developers have done such a good job with the sound of this aircraft. Even the missiles have a fuller, bassier thud sound when you fire them compared to some other modules. And in VR, they've also done a really good job of modeling the cockpits to make you feel like you're actually in a real cockpit. And I think in VR, you're just more critical, because if there is a flaw, it's really going to stand out in VR compared to a flat screen. So when I first spawn into a new module, I like to ask, how good is the immersion when you're in VR? And I have to say the developers did such a good job with this model. When I'm looking around, I don't see any seams, there's no clipping, and I do a lot of leaning and looking around, and I never leaned where I clipped into the seat or my head went through the wall or outside of the canopy. I just felt perfect, like I was actually in the cockpit of a C101, and it felt great. And kudos to the developers for making it feel so realistic in VR. And right now I'm in a pretty good dogfight with T-Rock, a pretty long dogfight. I'm trying to use as much vertical as I can, hold my energy and come around on him, but he's also doing a really good job as well. And I think the key to this aircraft is to keep your speed and be really gentle on the pulls, and hope that the other player maybe pulls when he shouldn't and loses some of the energy, because it's really hard to get it back when you don't have an afterburner. And that's what makes these fights to me so fun between the C101 versus C101. When it's the same aircraft, every little mistake really adds up. And you see there, T-Rock does a pretty cool hammer maneuver, but I'm still going up and I've got a lot of energy, so eventually I'm going to be able to come around on him. And the quietness of this engine is somewhat peaceful and relaxing, making this dogfight a tranquil experience, which is about to be interrupted by the sound of these machine guns. And as I fill them full of holes with my dual machine guns, here's a close-up of the damage model. And I've found that you just can't bring this thing down with just machine guns. It would be interesting to see what a 30mm cannon would do, but this thing just absorbs damage like a tank. Eventually the accumulation of damage will cause the engine to shut down, and the pilot will either run the plane into the ground or safely eject. But I found there's no easy way to bring this thing down. I wanted to add this clip because the C101 beautifully performs the hammerhead maneuver about as perfectly as any jet can in DCS. And this is such a useful maneuver when you don't have an afterburner. Let's say you've just put bullets on the other plane, he tries to make you overshoot, you go straight up with more energy, he stalls out underneath you, and then you beautifully rudder the plane over, and now you're back on his six. And I performed this maneuver multiple times just to show how aerobatic this plane really is. This module really is a joy to fly, and it's no surprise that this plane is a part of multiple aerobatic teams, because it performs World War II maneuvers about as perfect as any aircraft in DCS. In fact, it performs a lot of these maneuvers even easier than the Warbirds. So if you're a fan of Warbirds and that World War II style of dogfighting, I think you're really going to enjoy this. Like I said, if you can find another friend that is willing to dogfight you with the same aircraft. It's such a quiet and pleasant aircraft, you almost forget that you're trying to kill the other player. It's a really good module if you want to just fly around the map, enjoy the scenery, fly formation, or fly with somebody in the back. It really is a great trainer, and that's something that I underestimated because we ended up having multiple players in the back seat as the instructor. I had players asking me how I do my loops, and they ended up jumping in the back seat, and they were able to observe where I do my pulls, what part of the loop I pull the most, what part of the loop I relax, where I gain my speed back, where I close the distance. And to my surprise, this thing really did become a useful trainer. And we're seeing once again, this thing just tanks bullets over and over. As I'm fighting Freediver, enjoying the rolling scissors, I think his engine eventually becomes critical. I really do have to thank Mobius one more time, because I would have never bought this aircraft on my own, and I would have missed out on a beautiful aircraft. We can't leave without thanking T-Rock and thanking Freediver for flying with me and being good sports. They got their butts kicked, but that was probably because I had less fuel, and T-Rock called me a cheater. You know those videos where I never use the missiles and it kind of pisses everybody off? Well, we're going to use the missiles and we're going to see just how much damage we can do to this thing. So these are 9 mics, and interestingly enough, this thing can also carry magics. So Freediver gets hit on the left side, left part of his wing, it blows the tip of the wing off and his sidewinder off. Looks like it also took out the left stabilizer and it took off his rudder, but he's still flying. Looks like he's still in control. And in fact, I flew out in front of him and asked him if he could get a lock on me. And I don't think he was able to get a lock, but he was able to fire his missile. Alright, now it's my turn to get shot. And I did ask Freediver, tell me when you're about to fire it, because I'm going to try to do a barrel roll and see if I can make it miss. And right as I say that, bam, I get hit. So he gave me no warning, and it was kind of funny.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
So interesting, I got damaged similar to how he was damaged. I got more of my right wing blown off, which also blew off the stabilizer, but it also blew my nose off, but I still have my rudder, which is interesting. So I see a road down there, and I'm gonna make a run for that road, see if I can't land on it. Freediver's acting like the chase plane, which is giving me a really cool F5 view. I extend the air brake because I'm still pretty fast, and I don't even have the gear bound in this thing, but I think it'd be safer for me to land on the belly anyway. Freediver's giving me moral support, even though he's the one that shot me. So I think I got the road lined up pretty good. Actually touched down right on the road, a little bit of a bounce. Man, this is still really fast. Alright, we're in the grass, so that's going to slow us down pretty good. We're pretty safe. That's perfect. Perfect! So in conclusion, this plane is the plane that I did not know I needed or wanted, but it is awesome. Hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching.
Wait, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something.
I'm still alive. I can hear myself breathing. Freediver's dead, but somehow I'm still alive. I'm just blacked out.